watching.
Subscribe.
This is Joe Hendry here and welcome to ScreenStalker. Now we know all good things must come to an end, but unless it's the apocalypse, chances are Nintendo is still going to be sticking around. They've been a major player for the last 45 years in gaming, and today we're going to discuss some of the reasons why. This is why Nintendo will never die. So I'm here at Play Expo in Glasgow and looking around. It's been an amazing atmosphere, but one thing that's really cut through is that Nintendo seems to hold its value. A lot of the titles are going for, the original prices, or sometimes even higher what the original price is if you did a kind of a fair comparison with what the currency was worth today. But I'm looking around and it's clear that Nintendo is still super high in demand, not just the consoles, not just the games, but the brand as a whole as well. There's just something about Nintendo that I'm picking up in the vibe here today. So the first thing I want to talk about is their approach to technology, their hardware. And that story really begins with one of their senior developers called Gunpei Yokoi. He had humble beginnings within the company and he started simply maintaining assembly line machines before Nintendo even got involved in video games. But he was the person behind not only the Game & Watch to kick things off in the handheld department, but also the Game Boy. And he came up with the idea for handheld gaming when he saw a business person on a train simply passing the time by messing around with a calculator, thinking, surely we can do better than this. Because let's be honest, after you've typed 58,008 into a calculator and turned it upside down a few times, that's pretty much all you can do with a calculator. Now his philosophy has arguably shaped Nintendo's approach to technology from that moment on, and it was this idea, and I quote, "The Nintendo way of adapting technology is not to look for the state of the art, but to utilize mature technology that can be mass-produced cheaply." And this coined the phrase lateral thinking with withered technology. And what that means basically is that rather than competing with other organizations on who can have the best specs and the most impressive technological hardware, what they're going to do is they're going to take older, cheaper to manufacture technology, but they're going to present it in a way that is innovative and different, giving it the feel of something that's new that can be produced way cheaper than the competition. Satoru Iwata, who was the former CEO of Nintendo, stated that his influence is still present today in Nintendo, and you can see that with the likes of the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo Wii, and of course the Nintendo Switch. These all rely on this withered technology, but presented in a new creative way. For example, the Wii's graphical capability was actually very similar to its predecessor, the GameCube, but instead what they did is they took that withered technology of the motion controls, which had been around for some time, but presented it with the console in such a way that brought gaming back for the whole family once again. Another example which we can turn to, like we mentioned, is the Nintendo DS, which at the time was graphically inferior by quite a significant margin to its competitor, the PSP. However, because of the gimmick of the double screens and the immensely strong library of titles that they had at the time, it easily soared to the top of the handheld market. But it's not just the hardware at Nintendo that makes them so bulletproof, it's the strength of the core Nintendo brands. Think of these household names that they've got under their umbrella. Super Mario Brothers, The Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong, Metroid, Pokemon, the list goes on and on and on. And it's only when you look at the character selection on the latest Smash Bros that you realise how many valuable intellectual properties Nintendo has under one roof. But what's so amazing about it is these strong brands are presented in such a way that perfectly complements the hardware choice of this withered technology. What do I mean by that? Well, what do pretty much all of the Nintendo properties have in common? They're basically cartoons. And if you're looking at the latest Call of Duty or Red Dead Redemption 2, that's going to require the absolute latest and greatest graphical technology. But if you've got cartoons, you can present them in a stylized fashion rather than using the latest and greatest technology. So instead of having to compete against other brands for every single last extra pixel of detail, instead Nintendo just decides to be simply different. And that's perhaps the best way to conclude this video, is that when you look at the war between PlayStation and Microsoft over the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet or wherever the hell it's going to be, the fact is Nintendo is going to always be different, and that's how they always have their place in the market. Nintendo continues to carve its own path, staying true to those original design principles, having those incredibly strong brands mixing in with the hardware choices that complements it perfectly. They're an absolute powerhouse, and that's why it's perhaps no surprise that if you include both handhelds and home consoles, Nintendo has outsold both Microsoft and Sony put together. I've been Joe Hendry, this is ScreenStalker, and we'll see you next time. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share the video, do all the cool internet YouTube stuff that you need to do, and I'll see you next time.